Hello everybody, welcome to my channel and welcome to another video about living in Italy. In this video I'm going to talk to you about my experience learning Italian and becoming fluent in the language within less than 6 months and without having to actually go to a formal school or a proper Italian language class. Now, the tips that I'm going to share in this video can help you learn any language quickly, and they are the same tips that I applied to learn Italian in less than 6 months. If this is your first time, my name is Hilda Gloria. Thank you so much for tuning in. Consider subscribing so that you don't miss my next video. Do so by hitting the red subscribe button down below. The first tip is to make friends with Italian. Now, if you would like to learn a language, it would be better to learn from people that are native speakers, and there you would learn properly how to speak. You would be able to listen to the accent and actually be able to understand the language properly. So I made friends with Italian and I used to hang out with them, listen to them speak, and actually have to learn from them, ask them if I made a mistake and ask them to actually correct me. I always ask them the meanings of different words and try to practice speaking with them, because then I actually learned to listen and understand the language from a native speaker, like an actual Italian, as opposed to learning the language from maybe a teacher that just learned how to teach the language. Tip number 2 is learning the basics, and the basics I mean the first 100 most commonly used words in Italian or in any language, things that I would easily translate to English. For example, the, I, please, this, that, basics that I knew I needed to use in constructing sentences. I learned the first 100 most common words and I just googled that, and I was able to use those words to build simple sentences. For example, combining words like this is mine, questo è mio. It's very easy if you start creating small sentences, if you start creating short, simple sentences, to growing into building a conversation and maybe stories and all that. The other basic that I learned is the first 100 numbers. Now, I think that is very important for every other language, because once you learn the numbers, you are good to go with things like age. If somebody asks you how old you are, if you know how to tell numbers in that language, you'll be able to tell the street numbers, money, how to count money in Italian, how to add and subtract the result in case you went to a supermarket or in case you went to a market. I knew how to communicate about money because I knew the first 100 numbers in Italian, and it's one of the first things that I learned, and it's also one of the first things that I usually learn in every other language. So if you would like to become fluent in Italian, the first thing, first 100 most common words in Italian, and then learn the first 100 numbers. It's going to help you a lot. Then from the first 100, I went to the first 1000 and then went on to build until I built a very big vocabulary in both words and numbers. The next step was to write down phrases that I use daily. Now that I had, the most common words, I started writing down sentences of the phrases that I use every day. Things like good morning, things like can I have a ticket please, things like may I please pass, good morning, and I just made sure that I practiced these somehow, somewhere, because anyways you need these phrases in almost your daily life. So I wrote them down in Italian and practiced them every day, and luckily I had an Italian roommate, so I had to practice these with her every morning. For example, good morning, and at the end of the day I asked her how her day was, and every single time she gave me a response and there was something new, I asked her what it meant. Otherwise I had the responses memorized from my part. I knew how to say I am fine, I had a good day, or I had an average day, or I had a bad day, and then we would go on building from there. But the basics was to use the phrases that I knew that I needed to use every single day, so that I had those memorized and I got those in my brain. One other thing that really helped me is the app Duolingo. It is very good for other languages like Spanish, Portuguese, Swedish. I mean, you can find so many other languages if you are trying to learn another language and become fluent, because it gives you a more accurate translation, you know, into a language that you would like. For example, if you are translating from English to Italian, it will give you, let's say, 99% accuracy in translation as compared to, you know, randomly checking, for example, on Google Translate or any other, you know, means. So it is very helpful, and you can have it on your phone. You can easily type in a sentence, for example, where is the Duomo, or where can I find the Duomo, and then it gives you a very correct, you know, grammatically correct sentence of how you can ask where to find this place in Italian. And then I used to just read that, and people would respond, and then I would put in the response and then get to know the answer, so that, you know, I learned how to move around. And that really helped me, because then I knew what the question would be like in Italian, and then what the response is like, and then I would memorize that and, you know, practice that over and over until I actually learned it and started to use it. The cool thing with this app is that it also has got voice over, you know, message, so you could easily just say a word and it would tell you whether it understands it or it doesn't understand it, which is something that helps with speaking if you are trying to learn the language. If your speech is not clear enough, the app will tell you that it does not understand the word, and therefore it cannot translate it. So you would have to practice it again, and, you know, if you practice it again until you got it right, for the app to actually understand what you're saying. This helps with the accent as well, which is another point that I'm coming to later on. Moving on to working on the accent, I know people usually don't take this seriously, but if you cannot speak the language in a fair enough accent, it does not give that much meaning, if you know what I mean. People will not understand you if you cannot try and, you know, let's say, imitate the accent, the actual accent. For example, things mean differently in Italian if you use a different kind or tone of voice. For example, if you just say in Italian basta, it is something like, you know, stop it, but lightly. You might not be upset, or you might just, you know, want things to end in a certain way. But if you yell and say basta, like they usually say it, it means stop, and you're angry. It actually, you know, shows your emotion and shows what you actually mean and what you are requiring the other person to do, and they will react immediately. So if you say things in a different way, for example, in a different tone of voice and compared to, you know, the real Italian accent, people will misunderstand what you're saying for most of the phrases, because the tone of voice and the accent really matters, and they will not clearly understand what you're saying. They will often ask you to repeat what you're saying because they probably do not understand. So it is very important, like I mentioned before, to, you know, listen to Italian from Italian friends, so that you know how to pronounce these words correctly, you know how to say them correctly, you know how to use the different tones of voices when you are referring to, you know, different situations that might have the same words. So this is very important, like trying to master the accent. And things that can help you do that is, you know, listen or watch movies in Italian, listen to music in Italian. What really helped me was to watch movies that I already know in English and watch them in Italian without, you know, English subtitles, so that I know that, for example, in a certain part, if somebody's upset and is yelling stop it, I can hear it in Italian and then remember that, you know, and know how they say it, and, you know, with what tone of voice. This really helped me also with my conversation. I just realized that once somebody speaks and you are listening, especially for English speakers, we first of all get the message, have to translate it in our minds, and then say it out. But once you listen to movies, or once you watch movies, it becomes sort of natural that you actually respond in Italian instead of first of all waiting, translate, and then respond. It helps you, you know, with the ease in communication and with your speech. It also helps with your, you know, fast understanding of the language and processing it. It's not very easy to understand Italian comedy or to even, you know, get the jokes, but once you listen carefully, you start to get it, and it actually becomes funny. So that helps you to, you know, broaden your grammar, broaden your vocabulary, and, you know, the ability to understand and process the language quickly. The other thing that really helped me is using gestures. Now, I have not seen a country where they use gestures like in Italy. I think for every word there is a gesture. So using gestures here, using your hands to speak, helps you, have people correct you. For example, if I'm speaking to my roommate and I do not know what I am saying, I would just simply demonstrate it and she would mention the word to me. So that would help me to learn what that is. If, for example, I'm talking about salt, or if I'm talking about sugar, or if I'm talking about like drinking, I mean, there is a gesture for basically everything, and that really helped me, and it still helps me if I do not, or if I forget how to say something. It does help me a lot. The other tip is to find, the relatability between Italian and the other languages that you speak, and in my case it was English. Now, the alphabet is the same, so reading is very easy for me, and I found it very easy. You will find it very easy if you are able to read in English. Now, reading in Italian is, I think, one of the easiest things I've done. It's just like in my native language, which is Luganda, very easy to read, and you find words which are, I would say connected, or that you can steal from English, and in Italian as well. Things like problema, it means problem. Necessità, the necessity. I mean, words that you can relate easily from English to Italian, and learn those first, and then that is going to help you, pick them up every time you hear them being used in a sentence. That way you can also use them easily without, having any hardship. Another word is difficoltà, which is difficulty. Really, if you speak English, Italian has got a couple of words, has got lots of words that are very similar to English, or that you can easily relate to English, and those words will make your life easier, or will make understanding the language easier, because you can easily just relate from one language to the other. Now, most of you might be saying, oh yes, you're telling us that you speak Italian and you are fluent in Italian, and you got Italian fluent in less than 6 months. We would like to hear you speak Italian. I've never actually spoken Italian on my channel, but yes, this is the chance. I would like to, say something in Italian. My current level of Italian is working level, which means that I am able to, understand complex, I would say, writings or parts of speech, and then be able to respond accordingly. So I am going to speak to you in Italian. Of course, if you are a beginner, or if you've never learned the language, or if you never heard of a thing in Italian, I'm going to put subtitles in English down on the screen, so that you know what I am talking about. Ciao, sono Hilda Gloria, vivo a Milano e nata in Uganda, la parte di Africa Est. Le cose che mi piacciono da vivere a Milano è la possibilità di viaggiare nelle altre città europee facilmente, non c'è problema, è proprio vicino. Se vuoi andare tipo a Barcellona, a Madrid, a Praga, a Parigi, è proprio vicino e non costa tanto. E un'altra cosa che mi piace a vivere a Milano è la moda, la mia passione di cuore. E un'altra cosa che mi piace è la possibilità di viaggiare dentro la città facilmente, perché c'è la metropolitana, c'è altri mezzi pubblici che sono facilmente e costa meno da trovare o da usare. E l'altra cosa che mi piace è la diversità della popolazione. Eccoci, la mia prova di parlare in italiano sul mio canale. Se questo è il tuo prima volta di vedere i miei video sul mio canale YouTube, allora ti inviti gentilmente di iscrivere. Devi solo cliccare sul bottone iscriviti, così appena esce il nuovo video ricevi una notifica o un avviso sul tuo telefono. Grazie mille, alla prossima, ciao ciao!